Hello, I'm Michael for GameWatcher.com and welcome to our preview of Expeditions Viking, the new top-down RPG from Logic Artists. Viking games are a dime a dozen at the moment, however Expeditions Viking holds a slightly different take on the Viking traditional theme in video games, in the fact that it is completely fantasy-free, meaning that there is no magic, there are no mystical gods, instead it's just humans and their deprived nature. And in Expeditions Viking, you play the role of your very own Viking chieftain, and you are newly appointed after your father dies, and it is your task to rebuild your clan to its former glory and take on the British Isles for pillaging or trading, depending on which you prefer. Expeditions Viking is solely about the idea behind choices, and it is completely narratively driven, so there is no real open world per se. You can travel around the world to do various things, but it is completely story driven and focuses more on the idea behind choice and consequences, and your choices will have direct consequences of what happens later on in the game. The great thing about Vikings is that within those choices it gives you different ways to play the game. So you can be a trader and accumulate wealth for your clan that way, or you can be full hardcore warrior Viking and plunder your way to riches and fame. The game also features a political side of things, so there are factions and there's a reputation system involved, and the choices in the story and the actions that you take will change the reputation of various factions, which may lead you to other things depending on how you go about it. So for example, if you go into a town and complete various quests in that town and end up killing a lot of the villagers, then that town is going to dislike you, and that will have direct consequences. So first, let's start off with the combat. The combat itself is a fairly traditional turn-based top-down system. It works by movement and attack actions, and characters have access to a variety of offensive, defensive, utility, and various other skills to use in combat. There are a multitude of classes, and you can even hybrid build, so you're not really limited into how you want to build certain characters in your party. The combat works very well, and I have to say that one particular thing that I really enjoyed was the animations, especially when characters get critical hits or get shot by a bow. You really do feel the impact of the hit, and it's something that the developers clearly have paid careful attention to and has worked for the better. Outside of combat, there are a multitude of quests to take on, including main quests and side quests. You have a fairly large world to explore and travel around, although it is fairly limited in terms of where you can actually go. In between major locations, you can also camp, in which your characters are basically given 4 shifts of camping, and you can create weapons and armor, heal the sick, and of course guard the campsite from enemies. One of the main objectives of the game is of course to rebuild your clan and turn it from a weak clan to a strong clan, and one of the ways to do that is to rebuild your settlement. The game has a building and resources mechanic, so that as you go through the world looting items, you're going to gain resources, and you can trade for resources such as wood, hides, meat, rations, everything that you can think of. You can then use your resources to upgrade your facilities. Now, upgrades will not only grant your clan more prosperity or power, but it will directly give you items. So for example, if you build a herbal glade, it means that you will every week acquire a certain number of herbs to use to create medicine. While visually it's not the most stunning game, the aesthetic works for the most part. Where the game's draw comes in is in its story, is in its overall atmosphere that it creates, and the musical score does go a long way to help create that Viking feel, with a certain theme tune that really just strikes home the idea of having a Viking adventure. What I played of the preview build I certainly liked, but the overall preview build did lack a certain amount of content, especially for the Denmark portion of the campaign. I certainly hope that they fill it to the brim with content upon release. The game is scheduled for a Q1 2017 release, so we won't have to wait that long until we get our hands on the full version. If they are able to put in a absolute ton of content, including more main quests, more side missions, and more overall main story plot, I think that this certainly could be one of the better Viking RPG games around. And if they manage to actually put so much content in that it lasts maybe 20 to 30 hours, then it will be certainly worth anyone's time or money. And that is our preview for Expeditions Viking. Thanks for watching, and head on over to GameWatcher.com for more.